Beyond everyday crises, the Kurdish nation in the artificial geography of Iran faces deep and structural challenges that do not stem from temporary mismanagement, but rather arise from the central government's systematic policies aimed at erasing and marginalizing Kurdish identity, economy, and political will. We have never had a true and elected representative in the real structure of power in Iran, neither in decision-making bodies, nor in security apparatuses, nor in national level policy making. Education in our mother tongue, which is a fundamental right of every nation, has been completely banned and suppressed. While other nations around the world view bilingual and multilingual education as a driver of development, the Iranian regime considers it a security threat. In the field of employment, the statistics speak to a bitter truth. The unemployment rate in the Kurdish regions under Iranian occupation is 2 to 3 times higher than the national average in Iran. There is virtually no national investment in these regions, and infrastructure and industrial projects have either been halted or were never planned in the first place. In terms of public and development budgets as well, the provinces of Kurdistan under Iranian occupation have always ranked at the very bottom. This is true both in terms of development budgets and in their share of the gross domestic product. These are not random acts of discrimination, but rather the result of deliberate policies of centralization, economic suppression, and demographic engineering, all pursued with the aim of weakening the Kurdish national presence in Iran. Meanwhile, most underground resources, including oil and gas, as well as gold, silver, copper, and iron are all found in Kurdistan. But this oppressive regime, having forcefully occupied this ancient land, has systematically plundered everything from invaluable ancient artifacts to all abundant underground and surface resources without allocating any rightful share to the indigenous Kurdish people. Overall, what we are facing is not just a crisis, but an entrenched structure of institutionalized discrimination, which can only be changed through the liberation and national sovereignty of the Kurds. We expect the free world, especially Israel and Western democracies, to view the Kurdish issue not only from a humanitarian perspective, but also based on strategic principles and shared interests. Our expectations are clear, legitimate, and achievable. First, the official recognition of the Kurdish people as a nation under occupation and divided among 4 countries seeking to reclaim their historical right to national sovereignty. Second, support for the Kurdish people's right to self-determination within the framework of the United Nations Charter, and defending this right in international bodies such as the Security Council, the European Parliament, and International Court. Third, providing intelligence, media security, and political support to the independence movements of Eastern Kurdistan and other parts of Kurdistan, in order to protect activists, strengthen diplomacy, and counter the state terrorism of the Iranian regime. Fourth, ending the double standards toward non-Persian nations in Iran and not sacrificing the Kurdish issue for the sake of nuclear negotiations or short-term geopolitical interests. Fifth, establishing strategic relations with the Kurdish freedom movements as stable, secular, democratic, and anti-terrorism partners in the new Middle East. We believe that regional security is not possible without the freedom of the nations confined within the artificial borders of Iran. Supporting the Kurdish nation is not only a moral duty, but also a strategic choice for the civilized world. Despite intense waves of repression, widespread arrests, and the heavy security atmosphere prevailing in the Kurdish regions under Iranian occupation, The capacity for resistance among the Kurdish nation has not only failed to diminish, but is actually expanding in an underground, organized, and multi-layered manner. Networks of civil, cultural, media, and even operational resistance are rebuilding themselves in the shadow of past experiences and future prospects. We have previously proven, both during the armed resistance movements of past decades and in the nationwide uprising of Jin, Jian, Azadi, that the Kurdish nation has the ability to break the power of the Iranian regime. We have shown that we are not just a force that desires change in Iran, but a force that also possesses the capacity and practical will to bring about this change. Now, more than ever, we are in need of targeted support from the international community. This includes democratic countries such as Israel, the European Union, the United States, and other governments aligned with the ideals of freedom. Such support can take the form of logistical, educational, security, media, and diplomatic assistance. We believe that by establishing a no-fly zone over Iran, similar to has been implemented in other regions in the past as was done in Iraq, it is possible to create the necessary breathing space for the uprisings of oppressed peoples, from Kurds and Baluchis to Arabs, Turks, Caspians, and others, so that every nation can freely move toward its own independent political sovereignty. The fall of the Iranian regime will not only be a strategic transformation for the Kurds, but for the entire region, paving the way for peace, stability, and liberation from state-sponsored terrorism. We are ready to seize this historic opportunity with responsibility and unity to shape a free future and to secure a democratic and liberated future for our peoples. Undoubtedly, we also expect practical and effective support from Kurdish organizations and forces outside the borders of Eastern Kurdistan. At such a decisive historical juncture, this support is not only possible, but also necessary and a national duty. The forms of this support can be diverse and complementary, including military, media, and security training, to prepare internal forces to confront repression and asymmetric warfare. Financial, legal, and logistical support to strengthen the infrastructure of civil and political resistance inside Eastern Kurdistan. Forming joint international lobbies to challenge the Iranian regime in international institutions and to defend the Kurdish nation's right to self-determination. Launching global media campaigns to expose the crimes of the Islamic Republic against the Kurdish people in Eastern Kurdistan with the aim of attracting global public opinion and diplomatic pressure. Overall, we need organized cooperation that goes beyond mere slogan-based solidarity. Cooperation that can turn the potential of the Kurdish diaspora into an effective force in the field of the national struggle. We neither call it a rebellion nor merely an ethnic or national reaction. Rather, we consider it a natural, historical, and legitimate right for the Kurdish nation. In our analysis, merely changing the regime in Tehran without fundamentally transforming the political structure of Iran, which for centuries has been based on centralization, Persian dominance, Shiism, and the denial of non-Persian nations, cannot resolve the Kurdish issue. We view independence not just as a demand, but as a fair, sustainable solution in accordance with the universal principle of the right of nations to self-determination. However, if in the future a new structure emerges in Iran that transparently, securely, and internationally recognizes the Kurdish nation's right to self-determination, whether that be independence, confederation, or any other form, determined by the free will of the people of Eastern Kurdistan, then it can be considered. But until then, we pursue the path of independence, not as a radical option, but as the only realistic response to a century of oppression. Certainly, cooperation is possible, but it is conditional on one fundamental and non-negotiable principle: the recognition of nations' right to self-determination. We believe that unity with other oppressed nations and occupied lands within the current geography of Iran, including the Baloch, Ahwazi Arabs, Turkmen, Azeri Turks, Caspians, and others, is not only possible, but a historical necessity on the path to dismantling Iran's colonial structure. However, this unity must be based on mutual respect, mutual recognition, and the rejection of any denial of each other's national identity. Our bitter historical experience with imposed partnerships and centralized narratives has taught us that no coalition will be sustainable without guarantees of equal rights and independence in political decision-making. As for the Persian-speaking opposition groups, dialogue or coalition can only be pursued if they openly and explicitly acknowledge that Iran is a multinational country, that the lands of these nations have been occupied by this regime, and that Kurds, Baloch, Arabs, Turkmen, and other peoples are not minorities but nations with the right to national sovereignty. As long as this fundamental principle is not fully and unequivocally accepted, any form of alliance, regardless of its stated intentions or structure, will inevitably and regrettably merely reproduce the historical patterns of domination and occupation. Thank you very much indeed, dear Tom, for generously giving me this invaluable opportunity to comprehensively present our deeply held views and to amplify the authentic voice of our people. I sincerely and profoundly appreciate it. Today's conversation is not just an interview, but a step toward connecting free and awakened nations, especially the Kurdish and Israeli peoples. Before concluding, I would like to deliver a heartfelt and historic message directly to the people and government of Israel. People and government of Israel, your return to your homeland was not only a national event, but also a historic model for nations like ours. Your experience, from the suffering of dispersion to the establishment of an independent state, has been and continues to be an inspiration to us Kurds. If in the past the world did not hear your voice, today it is our voice that echoes from Ilam, Lorestan, Kermanshah, Urmia, Sanandaj, all the way to Mahabad, Sakaz, Marivan, and throughout Eastern Kurdistan. We are ready to unite with nations who understand our pain, ready for an honorable peace, ready for a long overdue independence. In a world where oppression does not go unanswered, we extend a hand of friendship and solidarity, not out of enmity toward others, but because we believe in our own rights. Stand with us on this difficult yet clear path. You, the people of Israel, are a nation that throughout history has endured discrimination, displacement, and existential threats. And with determination, resilience, and hope, you have built your country on the foundations of freedom and security. This very experience is what we, Kurds, are living and breathing with all our being today. In our homeland, which has been occupied for decades, we are oppressed solely for being Kurdish. We are neither your enemies nor your rivals. We are your natural and strategic allies. Both the Kurdish people and the Jewish people are victims of a cruel regional order built on the denial of nations' identities. We speak the common language of liberation, the right to self-determination, and lasting peace. We extend a hand of friendship, partnership, and solidarity. Today, more than ever, we need the mutual voices of nations, the voice of truth, the voice of resistance, and the voice of seeking justice. Be our voice. Just as we are the voice of justice for all freedom-loving nations, the future of the Middle East will be built through the unity of free nations, not oppressive governments. We are ready to be two free nations united and partners on the path of peace, development, and coexistence, with hope for a bright future for Israel, for Kurdistan, and for all free nations. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I sincerely hope you have a truly wonderful day ahead.